Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. This season, it's all grit. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we preview the Detroit Lions Week 9 matchup with the Green Bay Packers. The Lions head to Lambeau Field, where they face the second-place 6-2 Green Bay team, who is fresh off back-to-back last-second victories. We'll hear from a Green Bay reporter and talk about what to expect this week against the Packers. Plus, we'll talk about Jameson Williams again and other things happening with the team. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hey everyone, this is Lomas Brown, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions, and current Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, as always, it's good to have you here.
Great to be here, especially when we get to talk about the game against the Cheeseheads.
It's going to be a game, and it's quite the matchup, and it's got all the billings we could ever hope it to be. James is out on assignment, but, he's provided some great insight and info for us. So even though you won't hear his voice, you're going to hear some of his written word. So, Coach, before we start talking about the Packers, let's have some final thoughts on that game from last week, because that was just such a bizarre game. I guess the special teams thing is what we want to start with. Talk about that NFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
No, I mean, that's just totally awesome player of the week, with the returns and things like that. Flip, those guys spend a lot of time on it. Coach Campbell always talks about the three phases, parts of the game, and that's a huge one. And again, those are those hidden yardage, we talk about that week in and week out. And short fields are good to work with. And there's a lot of good football teams that can score a lot of points when they're, getting the ball at the opponent's 25-yard line, and again, your percentages of being able to score, which translated into 5 for 5 in the red zone. And, and again, with the lack of having the ball and going on long scoring drives, we were able to, surprise some plays on them that they hadn't seen in previous drives to score touchdowns. I mean, it all falls into place, and we probably still have 4 or 5 plays that were earmarked for that game, and I have a funny feeling the Packers are going to see them this week.
There's a good chance of that, and yeah, Campbell's always talked about all 3 phases, and we definitely saw the special teams doing more than it has at certain times. 262 return yards, 258 yards of total offense, and so that just showed you how impactful it was. In the team celebration video after the game, the special teams coach Dave Phipp loudly exclaimed how lucky and proud he was and is to work for Dan Campbell. And Khalif said Ben Johnson joked that he couldn't call all his plays because of those long returns and the short field it created and the turnovers, which leads kind of what you're saying is, hey, maybe some of those are just going to be used this week and just kind of put into the repertoire.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let's pull them out.
All right, well, before we get to that and your breakdown, Coach, let's hear from our friend Lauren Helmbrecht from the other side of the lake, and here's my interview with her. I'm joined today by Lauren Helmbrecht, sports reporter for the CBS affiliate WFRV-TV out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. You can find her work at wearegreenbay.com. Lauren has also worked at NFL Films and pitched story ideas for HBO's Hard Knocks. Now, Lauren, it's great to have you here again.
Always happy to be back. Always happy to talk about this crazy NFC North. Remember when we were talking preseason? I feel like we're totally off. We didn't even know what was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knew. I mean, we knew it was going to be good, but we didn't know what it was going to look like. And let's start back there. We spoke with the preseason and what we thought it would look like. Are the Packers, after 8 games, basically what you expected them to be?
I don't know. I mean, if I just look on paper and they're 6-2, then sure. Yeah, I think I could have said that preseason. 6-2 seems pretty solid. Now, the way they became 6-2 with Jordan Love missing multiple games, getting an injury in week 1, Malik Willis being the backup quarterback. I don't even think he was on the team the last time that we talked. And then the Packers bringing in a new kicker twice. They brought in Braden Nervison. He was a undrafted rookie coming out of the Tennessee Titans. He wasn't good enough for them, so then they got Brandon McManus. No, I don't think I could have told you that this is how the Packers would have been 6-2, but 6-2 is a pretty solid start for this team.
I would say so. And let's start with that signal caller. Now, there's been some injury, and there is again, and we'll get to that. But in general, how has Jordan Love looked as a quarterback to you this year compared to last?
It's interesting. So he's obviously got it. He knows what's up. He's still a great quarterback. But the thing that really differentiated him at the end of last season was his touchdown to interception ratio. He was not throwing picks towards that second half of the season. This year, that has not been the case. He's leading the NFL in interceptions at this rate with 9 picks so far. And it's hard because sometimes you feel like maybe the picks get you to where you want to be, which is an aggressive quarterback who has faith in his receivers and will take risks. Other times you think, oh, this is putting a lot on the defense to have to make sure to get the ball back because they keep turning the ball over. Now, obviously, we'll talk about the defense later. The Packers defense has been very exciting. Jeff Hafley's unit's doing really well. But no, flashes of, oh, this is exactly who we knew Jordan Love was going to be. Then other times the interceptions just feels new. But I think it really has to do with the fact that he is being more aggressive. He has faith in his receivers. He's kind of got that gunslinger in him a bit. There's some jokes that there's a flip that switches between Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, and he decides which flip he's going to switch that game. But the Packers are winning despite the turnovers.
Okay, well, a big part of that is Josh Jacobs, I believe. And so I want to ask you, has Josh Jacobs been the Aaron Jones upgrade the Packers were looking for? What are you seeing out of Josh Jacobs' game, and how is that working with this Green Bay offense?
I don't know if I can do a one-to-one since we're seeing how well Aaron Jones is doing in Minnesota. So it's not like Aaron Jones didn't have anything left in him. But Josh Jacobs is doing really well. The Packers had 1,085 rush yards going into their Week 8 matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was the most rush yards through 7 games in nearly 50 years for the franchise. The franchise is running the ball and running it well. They were in the top of the NFL in rush yards per game. So is that what Green Bay needed and wanted? Absolutely, especially with the depth in the wide receiver room. If they can attack from the ground like Josh Jacobs is able to do, that's really exciting. The Packers have very much rallied around him. 2 weeks ago, he earned his first receiving touchdown in his career. He's had every record in the book, every receiving record without a receiving touchdown until that moment. And you could tell in the locker room that was really important for the team to get that for him. So they love this guy. They really are rallying around him. He's carrying the torch. And you could see it in this most recent game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jordan Love goes down with an injury. I know we'll talk about that coming up. And so Malik Willis is tasked with taking over the offense. He only goes 4 for 5, because that's how much Josh Jacobs is able to take control. We'll give some credit to Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson as well, the other running backs. But when you have Josh Jacobs, you can go 4 for 5 and still win a game.
Yes, you can. And part of the help that Jordan Love has gotten, I guess, is that receiving core you brought up. And last year, we just talked about how young they were. And coming into this year, there was still a lot of youth there. But I'm wondering, have you seen progression out of the receiving core? Is someone stepping up as the number one threat on the team, or is it more of a collective effort? What's your analysis of the receiving core?
So I think everyone remembers Romeo Doubs getting suspended a couple weeks ago, and there were a lot of rumblings of what that was or was not about. Some indications were that it was because of his playing time. And so that's kind of what you get when you have such depth in the wide receiver room. You might not get the receiving or the targets that you want, but he's back. Never, I would say. If someone's emerging as the top wide receiver, I mean, statistically, yes, it's Jaden Reed. He has the most receptions on the team. He has the most targets, but just by one. Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks are at 40. Jaden Reed's at 41. He has the most receiving yards. But he doesn't have the most touchdowns. The thing that's really interesting, I would say that I learned the most about this receiving core is that Tucker Kraft is a legitimate tight end one and very legitimate threat in the pass catching. He leads the Packers in receiving touchdowns with 5, more than Jaden Reed, more than Christian Watson, more than Romeo Dobbs, which was not the element I thought was going to be added to this offense. But yes, statistically, it's Jaden Reed. When Jordan Love throws a Hail Mary deep ball, well, I shouldn't say Hail Mary since the Bears fans who might be listening to this might be a little triggered by that, but a prayer of a throw down in triple coverage, it's Jaden Reed that comes down with it. I think I would argue that Romeo Dobbs probably has the best hands on the team. He can snatch a ball out of the sky in ways that actually have the press box gasping. People look around and say, oh my gosh, did that just happen? Dontavian Wicks, always a viable threat. Christian Watson, a threat. But my biggest takeaway, Jaden Reed, legit. Tucker Kraft, very legitimate.
All right. Well, and those guys that you're saying are so legitimate might have made life easier when the Packers have had to switch quarterbacks out, which they're 6-2. They've won games even when Jordan Love has been out and Malik Willis has had to take snaps under center. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Packers traded for Malik Willis late in the preseason or something. So let me ask you this, though. Do the Packers or have the Packers had to adjust their game plan a lot when Malik Willis comes in there? Do they rely more heavily on the run at that point? Or is it maybe just a slight adjustment, or is it no adjustment at all on the offense?
I couldn't sit here and say it's no adjustment. It definitely is an adjustment when you have your franchise quarterback versus Malik Willis. Now, all credit for credit's due. Malik Willis has played significant snaps in 3 games, and the Packers have won all 3 of those games. Green Bay would not be in the position they are right now if not for Malik Willis. However, they also would not be in this position without a Josh Jacobs, like I was saying. In some of those games that Jordan wasn't able to play, the Packers were able to very legitimately rely on Josh Jacobs. But credit where credit's due. Malik Willis leads a 2-minute drill, game-winning drive for the Packers against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's able to connect again with Jaden Reed and able to attack and get the Packers down the field so that they can score. In the games that he did start, I mean, he had his redemption game against the Tennessee Titans. Legit. That is a handed off quarterback. That is a quarterback who connects with these receivers. So the Packers don't have to completely scrap the game plan. They can still use their pass catchers, but it's not the exact same as if Jordan were out there, which is okay. People have different strengths, and ultimately, Malik Willis' strengths are getting wins because he's 3-0 with significant snaps.
Yeah, that is everything and then some that you could ask for out of a backup quarterback. Helping that in the offense is the play of the defense. Now, Robert Saleh is friends with Matt LaFleur. He was at practice recently, so let's talk about defense and how the Packers are looking to you on defense compared to last year. Because last year, you talked about the talent being greater than the sum of its parts. And is the defense finally gelling the way you thought it had the potential to do so?
I don't even think I could have said that the defense was going to be leading the NFL in turnovers forced this soon. The Packers have forced more turnovers in 8 games than they had all of last season combined. Unbelievable threat. Now, having a Xavier McKinney on the team is probably going to help with that. When he goes on a 5-game streak where he has an interception in each of those games, becoming the first player in NFL history to do that with the new team. 5 picks, 5 games, and then it was 6 going back to the end of last season with the Giants. Jeff Hafley has transformed this defense. He has done a lot of really interesting things with the defense. There's a lot of rotation, both on the line, in the secondary, the linebackers. There's depth on this defense that gets utilized a lot. And so you'll see rookies like Evan Williams, you'll see rookies like Javon Bullard, Edgerrin Cooper getting significant minutes very quickly. And not because there was a lack of talent in those positions, but it's because everyone's getting reps in. And that helps when people go down and are injured. There's 1, 2, 3 more guys who are able and willing to get in there. I really like the blitzes that he's been showing, Jeff Hafley's been showing. And seeing Xavier McKinney get a sack, I mean, that's always kind of fun. So the defense just very exciting. I would say the aggressiveness that was heralded all of the offseason is being seen. Now, as to your point about Robert Saleh, there was a big emphasis on the fact that he is not coaching the Packers defense. He's not going to come in and take over Jeff Hafley's position. They actually have a prior relationship too. They were on a coaching staff together in the past. No, instead, he's coming in and using his defensive prowess and his defensive mind to kind of scout team and let Matt LaFleur know, hey, this is what the Jacksonville Jaguars defense will look like, or coming up, this is what the Detroit Lions defense will look like. Therefore, this is what your offense should do. So no, people don't need to worry that someone's coming in and taking Jeff Hafley's job when he's done this well. In fact, it's just adding more exciting minds to what is already a very full and exciting coaching staff.
Yeah, well, I don't think Lions fans like the idea of extra help coming in for the Packers, but it's good to understand that. And now you're talking about the pressure on the quarterback. Are the Packers able to get pressure on the quarterbacks with just the front defense, the front four, front five, or are they having to bring extra guys to get that pressure?
I think it's probably bringing more extra guys than just the front four. They've been able to up a fair amount of sacks, but I wouldn't say Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, their individual stats would jump off the page right now. I wouldn't say if you looked at them and said, oh, wow, they must be part of a really good defense because they're doing all of this. I'm looking right now at the sack leader, Devontae Wyatt, Preston Smith, but then the third is Edgerrin Cooper, who is a linebacker. The tied for third, is Eric Wilson and Keyshawn Nixon. Those aren't the front four guys. So it's very obvious that Jeff Hafley is changing up his attack. And that's not inherently a bad thing, but it definitely does mean that linebackers are getting more involved with blitzing and with getting at the quarterback.
All right. Well, and then I guess if I touch on special teams for a moment, I mean, we talked about Brandon McManus. I mean, I'll tell you, as soon as the NFL was clearing him, this was weeks ago, Lions fans were already saying the Packers are going to sign this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only question would be what took him so long. But you got such a great kicker in Brandon McManus now that a big question mark weakness now goes to not just a stable point, but a strength. And that's got to give the coaching staff a little bit more confidence.
It is unbelievable, the shift of a stressful 30-yard field goal to the automatic, knowing that the Packers just need to get into 45-yard field goal range. I mean, to comfortably feel like they could do a walk-off win. 2 walk-off wins in a row off the foot of Brandon McManus. He joins the team on a Wednesday, kicks his first walk-off winner against the Texans on a Sunday. He has made a couple jokes about the fact that Matt Orshek and Daniel Whelan, the snapper and holder, respectively, have needed to kind of adjust to McManus's style. He's very particular with what he wants, but I think you can afford to be that particular when you've won a Super Bowl and you've been in the NFL for over a decade. He is now the oldest player on the team, so the players have started calling him Uncle, Unk, as they say, because he's a seasoned veteran, and that's what the Packers haven't had the last 2 years. Now, it's ironic to see how well Anders Carlson is playing for the San Francisco 49ers right now. Greg Joseph doing well for the New York Giants. So maybe there was just a misconnection with those here in Green Bay, but it looks like McManus is the guy. He's very comfortable out there. He barely needed any practice kicking in Lambeau, which has, weird crosswinds and things like that before he could easily go out there and nail what was ever thrown at him. So far, the Packers are happy with the decision after obviously doing their research, listening to what the NFL had to say about some of his off the field issues that were ultimately resolved.
All right. Well, at 6-2, it means they're a good team. And so let me ask you this, what is the Packers' strength right now? If you had to choose one thing, what's their best attribute?
Making it work, figuring out how to do it and making it work when players go down and when you have to have your backup quarterback come in and play significant snaps in 3 different games and getting wins in all 3 of them. And when obviously now the quarterback has gone down twice with 2 different injuries, a groin injury this week 8 against the Jags, updates still to come about his status going forward. And then obviously week 1 against the Eagles, then, having the depth on the defense and just figuring out how to make it work and get it done So I'd say that's their strength.
All right. Well, then conversely, what would you consider to be a weakness of the team still?
Weakness to the team would be probably optimizing opportunities. Tucker Kraft, again, leading the team in receiving touchdowns, very frustrated after the Jaguars game about the offense. They just weren't putting points on the board early in the game. And he says, we just need to come out better. Packers are a phenomenal second half team, but sometimes you put yourself in too big of a hole that you can't crawl out of it in the second half. There's just not enough time left on the clock. So I don't think that they've been able to maximize their opportunities when the opportunities are right there. Not converting on a turnover. The Packers defense, like I said, leads the league in forced turnovers. And the offense isn't always scoring off of those. They're not always walking away with at least 3. And that's an issue. And then, the Packers will be going on a great drive, and then Jordan Love will just throw kind of a bizarre interception. Just kind of a interesting decision is what I would say. So I'd say that's the issue, is not sometimes there's opportunities there for the taking and they just aren't doing the right things to do that.
All right. Well, finish this sentence for me. If Green Bay wins this game this weekend, it is because
they had a solid game plan. I think the Detroit Lions are too good. Obviously, 6-1, leading the NFC North, the hardest division in the NFL. Their Lions are too good to just rely on making it work. There has to be a really good game plan for this one to work. Whether it's Malik Willis needing to lead the charge, which, that would be unbelievable if he were able to beat the Lions. Or if it's the defensive scheme. There just needs to be a lot of thought going into this matchup, because as the joke with Jaden Reed is, F it, Jaden Reed down there somewhere. That's not going to work against the Lions secondary. And I think it's the game plan. What do you think?
Well, let me get this next finish. If the Lions win, it's because what?
It's because the Lions are really good. It is. I have no qualms just looking at the numbers, looking at the stats. I think the Lions' one loss, obviously you know better than me, wasn't really a good game. The Packers have been a victim to a really good Baker Mayfield game before, so that can happen. But seeing how well the Lions played against the Minnesota Vikings, previously undefeated, kind of leading them into a 2-game losing streak, which was not expected to. They're a legit team. They know how to win. They are scary to me as a media member. I don't think the Packers players would say that, but they're
Right.
a scary team. And so they're really good. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's because Jordan Love was potentially injured or not. No, it's okay. The Lions are just good. Doesn't need to be this crazy analysis.
I'm going to say that the key to the Lions winning is going to be they need to slow down the Green Bay rush game, the run game by the Packers. And the Lions need to get some pressure on the quarterback, because since the Aiden Hutchinson injury has happened, we have seen a drop off on that. And it's not just Aiden Hutchinson. The Lions have lost a number of guys up front this year, which has really pulled back from our pass rush. And we've had to manufacture things, kind of like you said, the Packers have had to bring some extra guys in to get some pressure on there. And so I think those are going to be two of the biggest keys to the victory. And, Jared Goff's going to have to be on again the way he has been for the past month.
Totally agree.
Well, any prediction or final thoughts before we get out of here?
You heard my preseason predictions. I was so wrong. I shouldn't be given that kind of opportunity to do that. No, I don't have any predictions. I predict this is going to be an exciting game. I think that fans will watch this game and think, wow, when did the NFC North become this deep? When did it become so top to bottom deep? Obviously, we said earlier the Bears are still reeling from a loss, but top to bottom, legitimate division, which is exciting. I think that's the best way that you can look at it, because there's a chance that 3 out of the 4 teams in the NFC North make the playoffs. I don't think anyone's upset about that.
No, I agree with that. I'm expecting 2 will make it for sure. I think there's a really good chance 3 will. I'm not expecting 4 just because we all got to play each other. Maybe if the ball had bounced the other way the other night for the Bears, maybe I'd be a little more hopeful of that. But don't feel bad about your predictions. I picked Minnesota to finish last in the division, and they started 5-0. And I had a Vikings reporter on a couple weeks back, and he was in the same boat you're in. And it's a crazy start to the season for everybody, and it's exciting football because the NFC North, I guess we could say, is kind of what we expected it to be. We thought it would be really good.
Yeah, we thought it would be good. I just don't know if I thought it would be this good.
Yeah,
I
agree.
That's exciting. That means we get to cover exciting and important football practically every day.
Yeah, and you know what? Whichever of these teams do make the playoffs, they're going to be battle tested after playing 6 divisional games each.
Seriously, they're going to be like, this? Easy. We got this.
Lauren, thank you so much for being here, taking the time to talk about the upcoming game this week.
Of course, Matthew. Always happy to chat football with you.
Well, Coach, that's some great insight, and I know you've got some scouting as well, and we're going to add that when we break down things on our end. But as we do, we got to hear from Coach Campbell about this upcoming opponent.
Let me say this. This is a very good opponent. All right. Matt's done a hell of a job, continues to do a hell of a job. I think Jeff Hafley's a hell of a coach. I've known him for a little while now, but I think this defense is humming. They got players, and they're playing hard defensively. So it's a damn good defense, and we've kind of hit this patch of some really good defenses. And this is going to be no different. And, over there offensively, man, they can control the clock. Jacobs he's a factor, man. This is a real dude. And then they've got really 6 receivers over there. And with Love pulling the trigger and a gritty offensive line, they come off the ball. Tight ends playing well. So look, this is going to be this is a hell of a matchup. I mean, this is 2 big time programs going at it at their place. And I'm looking forward to it. I know our guys are looking forward to it, but details, man, we got to be on the little things.
Now, Coach Campbell's never one to take an opponent lightly. And I think, you being a coach, you can probably speak to that as well. That's got to be something I believe that's ingrained in the coach's mind, because the second you take somebody lightly is the second everything falls apart. And, of course, I know a mantra of yours, I've been around you enough, you're not going to give the other team bulletin board material either. And I think Coach Campbell is amazing at both of those things. So, as he said, it's going to be a matchup. And the Packers are 6-2 this year. So let's start with their offense. What are we expecting out of Green Bay in this game?
Well, I mean, Matt LaFleur is just a great play caller, and I'm not just blowing smoke, to make sure he doesn't have any bulletin board material, but the guy does a phenomenal job. I'll post a couple plays. That last scoring drive they had, they lined up in the same formation on the first 2 plays before they went down and got the walk-off field goal. And basically Willis checked into, he ran a run play, and then they loaded the box up and he ran a pass play out of it. And that's what LaFleur does with that. He's very good at determining what the next play. And he always tries to be on schedule, but he always has in the back of the mind, hey, what happened in the first quarter? We're probably going to see that in the second, we're going to see it in the second quarter, third quarter. He's going to bring it back with a little halftime twist. And that's what you're going to see. So, they were predicted by some people in the league to win it. Love is the best quarterback in the NFL. We've all seen that. He got this huge, magnificent contract, after 1 year, and he sat behind Aaron Rodgers, so he learned a ton, and he's a great quarterback. He takes shots. You say Dobbs, Love, Reed, Kraft, Jacobs, and now you got Willis. I mean, those are household names. Those guys. Reed, I watched Reed at his Michigan State days. That kid, he can catch a ball in traffic. He can run by you. He can hide himself running a pass route, and they're going to hit him with end arounds. And I think those are the biggest things. And this is a huge game. Not only for the division, but also for the NFC. And Matt LaFleur is one of the best. We all know that.
Yeah, he is. And Jordan Love is saying he wants to play. There's hope he's going to play. We know he's banged up, but Green Bay, of course, would like him to play. Now, Malik Willis has filled in very admirably when Jordan Love has not been in there. Love has 15 touchdowns on the season, but he has 9 interceptions, which is more than we would be expecting at this point. That said, the Green Bay offense is number 6 in points scored, 5th in offensive yards, and 5th in rushing offense, and 9th in passing offense. They're 25th in giveaways, though. And so if you look at those things, that 25th in giveaways is not a good thing. We did talk about Jordan Love having more interceptions than one would expect at this point. And we're not shocked to see the passing game maybe behind their rushing game only due to injury with Jordan Love. And their offensive rushing game is good with Josh Jacobs. I mean, if you're looking at it, Josh Jacobs is averaging 4.6 yards a carry. He's got 667 yards through 8 games played. And that is a great number to go along with those guys you called out. Jaden Reed, a guy you're very familiar with from his time at Michigan State. Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft, the tight end. Those 3 guys have 31, 26, and 24 targets each. And then I didn't even mention Christian Watson yet, who hasn't had as big of an impact as someone might think at this point, but he's still a dangerous weapon. This is going to be a very good offense for the Lions defense to go up against.
Oh yeah, I mean that's that's the thing is and Will let's put Willis stats: 25 for 33, 324 yards, 2 tutties. Okay, 12 rushes for 114 yards. That's on his starts. Okay, on the 2 games he started, and I think both victories. Correct?
Yes,
I think they were both victories. Then he fills in. He goes 4 for 5 for 56 yards, and he had 23 yards rushing. Against Jacksonville last week. So, and they went out and got him. They went out, snack, grab, boom. They snacked him right away. And when you snag somebody like that, that they feel they can fit in. So, he's a little bit more of a running threat compared to Love. The big thing about Love is why you brought up his interceptions. He takes a lot of chances. Last year, we talked about it. I watched him in games this year, 4 or 5 games this year. He believes that he's got the best arm. He believes his press clippings that he's the best quarterback or could be the best quarterback in the NFL. I'm not talking down on him. I'm just saying he looks in the mirror every day and says, I am the best. And so he thinks he can make some of these Brett Favre throws and some of these Aaron Rodgers throws and Stafford throws underhands and sideways and off your back feet. And that's why he's getting those interceptions, and that, that's the biggest thing is if he plays, I hope he plays. I want to hear, that'd be great to see him play. We want their best against our best and see who's the better team. And it's tough. We are going to Lambeau, which is a tough place to play, but we've done some pretty good jobs. So, but you got 2 really good quarterbacks, a lot of skill guys, and a lot of guys. Jacobs came over to Green Bay for one reason: to win the league, to win the Super Bowl. And so he's going to try to have the game of his life.
Yes, he is. And, again, when Green Bay signed him, I was like, that guy's an immediate threat. I always admired his game when he played with the Raiders. And, so was not happy to see him join the NFC North. But the Lions' number 8 defense is going to have to do something about it. They're number 8 in points per game, right? But they're 20th overall for yards. 5th in rush defense, 27th in the pass. And the big stat is they're tied for 2nd in takeaways, which has really helped them. Now, we've made some teams one-dimensional with that rush defense, and that's, led to some of the pass yards there. But what are you seeing out of the Lions defense here? I know, we don't know who's going to be available this week, but Levi had a rest day, so we're expecting he's going to be fine. Josh Paschal is out due to illness. We're hoping he's going to be back this week. Malcolm Rodriguez is a to-be-determined guy. We don't know if he's going to be back for the defense. So those are some defensive players that we're going to want to rely on and we're going to need help with. So what are you seeing out of the Lions defense going into this?
Well, I think a lot of things when you look at that is, you can go, they're this on rush defense, we're this on rush defense, go back for it. The numbers are so similar. Some of the things that stuck out for me was the Lions defense is number 1 in third down efficiency. And they're number 9 in red zone efficiency. Okay. So in other words, those are big numbers. Yeah. And if you look at Green Bay side on that, they're tied for 9th and tied for 20th. On those. So those are things that I look at. We talked about last week, the bend that don't break. concept with our defense, and that's what you got to think about what we have to try to put on, on loving those guys. They're going to get their plays, they're going to get their big gains. We can't give them any big splash, 70-yarders, 60-yarders, 45-yarders. Those things are the backbreakers. It's a 45-yard run that doesn't end up in a touchdown. It's a 45-yard pass that doesn't end up in a touchdown, and we can regroup. I think that's one of the things the Lions have done very well this year, defensively against Green Bay's offenses. We don't give up that big, huge play, and we may give up a huge play, but we don't give up a huge score. Let's label it that way. And then we can regroup. We come back, and when we get down in the red zone, we buckle down and we make some great plays. Again, last week, 4 plays from 1 yard line, 0 points. So that's what I see our defense doing against the Packers. And they should be in good shape with that. We're going to pressure. Are we going to get sacks? Who knows? I don't know. AG's got stuff dialed up, but our coverage guys are going to do a pretty good job of that.
Well, yeah, and I think the pressure is going to be a big thing. We saw a little bit out of James Houston last week. I think we're going to maybe see some Isaiah Thomas this week. And we're facing a different caliber quarterback if Jordan Love is playing, even though if he's banged up, compared to what we saw last week in Mason Rudolph. And one would argue even in Sam Darnold the week before, even though Sam Darnold is playing well. And so the Lions are going to have to get some production out of those guys and to take a little bit of weight off that secondary because, Coach, if you don't have a pass rush, a good quarterback will eventually find an open spot in a secondary. It's just, it's in the favor of the wide receiver. Our secondary is good, and Terrion Arnold's been getting better every week, which is a really exciting thing going into this game, how much growth we've seen out of him. But I'm hoping the pass rush can do enough. And, if Malik Willis is in there or if Jordan Love is capable of scrambling just a little bit, you're going to have that contain element as well.
Oh, for sure. And let's give you some numbers on that. Willis under pressure is 50%. Okay. Willis under pressure is 50%. Yeah. I put his stuff in because I wasn't sure, Love was going to be. I can't remember what Love's numbers were. His are probably a little bit better because, he's a pretty good correct. So it's under the pressure, the blitzing concept and stuff like that. Willis, when blitzed, he's at 62.5. The problem with Willis, if he's in there, he can run. And so our pressures are going to be almost as big as our sacks because our pressures are going to we're going to pressure him and keep him in that pocket so he doesn't break on us. So those are the big things we have to do. Love, you can get him pressure if he's playing, and then you got to worry about him either making a highlight reel tape pass or an interception. That's the difference between those two. Willis can use his feet to extend the play. Love will use his feet to extend the play and either have a highlight pass where everybody's going to go ballistic on Sunday night and Monday about, oh my God, did you see that pass that Love threw? Even though the guys do it all through the league all the time. Or he should have ate that one. So those are, I think the way we've been playing defense up front, with Hutch and without Hutch is the same concept. Keep them in the pocket, keep those people locked in there, get them off their spot a little bit, make a little bit of pressure. And if we get some sacks, we get some sacks. But hopefully you put those guys, either one of those guys in their backs about 4 or 5 times this Sunday.
Yeah, I think getting pressure on Jordan Love is going to be really important to not give him as much time to throw. And Malik Willis, less experience and whatnot, that's going to be more of a contain the guy so he doesn't break out for scramble, even if he has a little bit more time to throw, because he might not be as good as Jordan Love when it comes to completing those passes and making those decisions, even though Malik Willis is playing very well. Some other stats about the Lions defense. James brought this up. Only 9 teams since 1979 have ranked top 5 of DVOA. And we hear that stat, that metric put out all the time. That's defense adjusted value over average metric. And so that's like a true measure of your defense. And so only 9 teams since 1979 have been in the top 5 in all 3 phases after week 8. 6 of those teams have won the Super Bowl. Right now in 2024, Detroit Lions are 4th in offensive DVOA, 3rd in defense, and 1st in special teams. and first overall in DVOA. So again, it's a metric, and it's how far do you want to go down the metric scale? What James is getting at here is the Lions are playing some pretty good defense when you look at just straight up defense and what the higher level numbers tell you versus just what those forefront stats tell you, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and again, we talk about that. We're in the red zone, third down efficiency when you're talking defense, and the same thing when you're talking offense. Those are the things you can hold a team to 100 yards. Well, look at last week; they held us pretty good in offense, but we had 5 scores. 5 for 5 in red zone. So you can hold the key. What we're doing is we're putting the ball in the end zone when we need to. If we're talking offensively, and we're keeping people out of the end zone when we need to. And those are the things those are your adjustments. Oh my God, we're giving up X amount of yards, or oh my God, and you can talk about the game last week. They had the best yards against defensively, the Titans last week, right? But they had the most turnovers. And so these metrics are measuring putting all those things together. And when you're coming out that high in all 3 phases of the game, you got a pretty good coaching staff.
That you do. Yeah. And, the rush defense is a big part of it. I mean, that has really forced people into playing a different game, playing the Lions game, which helps with those turnovers. Now, again, as you know, we talk about the turnovers aren't just interceptions. We see the Lions actively going after the football. And I do think the Lions rush defense is going to be a critical piece in this. And we'll probably get to that later. But I'm expecting their rush defense to play an important role against Josh Jacobs and what it's going to look like for the Packers. But let's flip over to the other side. What do we expect out of the Lions offense? Now, they are number 1 in points scored, 6th in total offense. They are 6th in rush offense. They're only 11th in pass offense. Last week hurt those passing numbers. And they're 5th in giveaways. They've scored 172 points in the last 4 games alone. James was looking that up. And that's more than 14 NFL teams have scored all season, Coach. And that's just in 4 games. It's also the most the Lions have ever scored in a 4-game span. And that 52 points they put up last week was a long time since they've done that. So what are we expecting out of the Lions offense going into this one? Knowing Jameson Williams is still out, but it looks like everybody else should be healthy. Jared Goff obviously looked like he hurt his ankle. He did not practice, but they're saying it looks, Jared Goff already said he's fine. He just has a little soreness. So what are we thinking out of the Lions offense on this one?
Well, I think the same thing is, we're going to attack. Again, you go back, their rush defense, their pass rush, all things like that, all the numbers, oh my God, they're 5, we're 6, we're 4, they're 7. Again, you can go back and forth on that stuff. We're just clicking at all cylinders. It'll be interesting to see what they try to take away from us. Passing consistency, passing wise, we just got to stay away from Kenny. He's got 6. He leads the league in safeties. He leads the league as an individual. We lead the league as a team because we have 9 between our 2 safeties. Their other safety, I think it's Williams. He may be hurt. And then I know that is Alexandria, the really good corner too. He's also banged up a little bit too, but who knows? Again, we don't. The point is, Green Bay has a great coaching staff, like the Detroit Lions have a great coaching staff, and Matt LaFleur's have those guys ready, and the DC is going to have those guys ready. So the things that stick out for me, okay, our offense, red zone efficiency, 7th in the league. Okay, and we were 1 for 5 in one game, right? I think it was 1 for 5 or 1 for 6 in our only loss.
I thought it was 0 for 5 actually. Maybe it was 1 for 5. It wasn't good against Tampa.
So now and we could take the last 4 games and we're probably number 1. Hands down. Well, we're 5 for 5 last week because it was so short. Our third down efficiency is 7th. Okay. So that's another thing. Our third down efficiency is 7th. Green Bay is 15th against that. And against the red zone efficiency, Green Bay's tied for 25th. And then, of course, giveaways we're tied for their 25th tee. So something's got to give in this situation right now. Now, we haven't used 4th down as much this year as we normally have. Why? Because our third down efficiency we've done such a great job of doing that. So it'll be interesting to see what the Packers try to do to establish that and try to slow us down from that efficiency. But then again, what comes into play that I know they're working on is how many times is Dan Campbell going to go for it on fourth down? So if they do a good job at their third down defensive efficiency against our third down, they have to take into account that third down is really for Dan Campbell a second down, and we still have another play, because that's Coach Campbell's mindset, Coach Johnson's mindset. So I think those things are going to have to give. They got defensively, you got McKinney, you got Gary, you got Wilson, you got Alexander, you got Williams. Again, household names. Okay, household names. Gary's a one-man wrecking crew. I'll throw in Brooks in there too, the kid from Bowling Green. Carl Brooks, and he's a Michigan. He's from Lansing area.
Yep.
I'm throwing that in there because I coached him in the All-Star game, so I just want to give him a shout out. This is the only game I root against him in, and so those are the things they're going to have to give, and they're going to try to put the pressure and stuff on there. Now, let's talk a little bit. I'm on a roll right now, so I'm just going to keep rolling with it. Let's look at last weekend, Trevor Lawrence. Okay, they only gave up one sack. Okay, they only had one sack last week against Trevor Lawrence. Okay,
the Green Bay defense.
The Green Bay defense. Okay, and so I want to touch base on their defense a little bit on that situation. The other thing too is Lawrence was he threw the ball well. He had 308 yards passing. He was 21 for 32. Okay, under pressure, he was 3 for 7, but he averaged 9.6 yards per play, per passing attempt. 9.6 against the Packers, which is pretty impressive. Okay, that's pretty impressive. So I think that comes into he threw the ball downfield. He was he had 1, 2. He was 5 for 9 downfield. He only threw 2 balls behind the line of scrimmage, and his best were the intermediate routes. He was 2 for 5 to the left, 7 for 8 in the middle, and 2 for 2 to the right. Those are those 0 to 10 yard throws. Yeah. So the reason I'm talking about that is that stuff we live on. Okay, that's stuff we live on. Yeah, Lawrence had the time to make those throws, so I think that's a big indication on. I think Green Bay is gonna have to put a lot of emphasis on their defense this week and try to figure out how they can get to Jared Goff. But who's the best passer against the blitz in the NFL?
In his last 4 games against the blitz, Jared Goff has 7 touchdowns and 2 incompletions. And that Tampa game, I actually believe it was 1 for 7 in the red zone. Since then, the Lions have been super efficient. Like you said, last game, it was 5 for 5 in the red zone. And so, yeah, the Packers are going to have to get pressure on Goff, but we know we have that great offensive line. We're expecting, I believe, Zeitler to be in there, hopefully having a full, healthy offensive line this week. And so if that happens as well, then we're going to be in even better shape, just continuing to have that healthy offensive line. And the Packers are really good at the takeaway. I think they're number 1 in takeaways in the league, and that's where we're going to need Jared Goff to be on his game. But you talked about it, that underneath stuff or that short range stuff where the Lions live. I mean, that's Amon-Ra St. Brown's. That's a sweet spot right there. He can go deep, but those 7 to 10 to 15 yards across the middle, I mean, that works really well with his game. We're seeing Tim Patrick get involved more, and we saw a lot of short passes recently to Gibbs and Montgomery. I expect more of that to continue. Coach, do you think they're going to work Sam Laporta in here more? Is this another opportunity for him to, and I don't want to say, he's made his impact. He's got 20 catches. People wanted him to have, 35 at this point. Stats don't matter as far as that. You're winning games. You're going to who you need to when they're available. And maybe he hasn't gone to because they've taken him away and the Lions have gone elsewhere. But this seems like a great opportunity or a game that he might play some crucial moments.
I think so. I think that's that intermediate route concept, the dig routes. I think you could still send him on. Is McKinney, when they're running the single high with McKinney or Williams, if Williams comes down the box, we can send a couple verts on that. McKinney, of course, is McKinney's a baiter. He's a baiter just like our guys. He walks you into him. That's why you don't have that many picks. You don't trade for him. I think they traded for him, didn't they? During the offseason, they brought him in. And because he's probably one of the best safeties. And so, you can really change his eyes and his level by some vertical routes and by, with Laporta and like St. Brown or Tim Patrick going at him and keep him away from adding to that another interception. I think he's got 4 or 5 straight games, where he's got an interception. So, so I think that's some of the things that we'll look at. Again, you got my other concern up front too is Smith and Gary, with Decker and Glasgow right now. I know the Lions have addressed it. I kind of researched after we talked about, I was a little concerned with the left side of our line with Decker giving up all those pressures last week and those swim moves and stuff. Guys were beating them. That's what Gary and them work on. But as I went through and researched Decker a little bit more, he's had like 2 not Decker games. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's had like 2 not Decker games, which has exploded or inflated the pressures and stuff he's had on him on the year. So he's really not as bad. And I didn't have time to check to see if he goes one game, good game, bad game, good game, bad, something like that.
Right.
Which I feel really good about it this week. I think he's reading some of the press clippings or hearing from people, and I know that Farley's working on it, and I think he's going to have a great game.
Yeah, and again, let's not forget the Titans have a good defense. Yes. And so, the team's not very good as a whole, and a lot of it's because that offense gets them in trouble, and it went exactly pretty much the way Dan Campbell said it was going to go last week. But then on offense, we didn't mention Khalif Raymond, the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He's got the speed. We might see him on a go route in this game. You don't know, because that will keep the safeties back a little bit, and he's got the speed for that. You might see Jahmyr Gibbs on a longer route with his speed and whatnot. So those will be some things to keep an eye on with the Lions offense. I got another one here from James Cook here. He does a great job of doing some great research. You can tell the journalist in him just is here with this one. He was I don't know if he was interacting with Packers fans on a message board or if he was just, looking through one. But here's a quote he pulled from a Packers fan on a message board. And it says, "I'm not sure that the Packers are at the same level as the Lions right now. They are a fine-tuned Hemi V8, and we are currently a turbo V6 with a lot of mechanical issues." And so anyone in the automotive industry, that's a connoisseur, like my uncle, all right, he'd rather have a V8 than a turbo V6 because he's old school. Okay, my uncle's old school on that stuff. And I understand the new tech stuff is coming out and whatnot. But again, that's a Packers perspective. And so what it means is they're giving Lions respect, which, we've earned that respect. That being said, it's going to be a game. And I think Campbell talked about it great. I take nothing for granted on this thing. But I just thought that was an interesting perspective from a Packers fan using the car analogies with the Lions.
Yeah, I agree. I have to disagree with the Hemi V8 because that's not a Ford product. So we would not be a Hemi V8.
Touche, my friend. Touche.
So I don't know if he's making fun of us or if he's agreeing how good we are. But yeah. No, and I agree. I mean, that's us. I think we are the V8 concept. But I'm thinking more the 350 F350 turbo diesel. That's what I'm the 7.3. The old school 7.3. So I'll agree with them a little bit on that. We're gonna throw the Hemi V8 out, and we're the 7.3 diesel that Ford came out with years ago.
I appreciate that realignment there you gave us with the car. Okay, let's talk about some major storylines, unexpected stuff. Okay, the big unexpected news this week: Jameson Williams. All right, the report came out that he was pulled over in a vehicle there was a traffic violation. He was a passenger. He and his brother both had guns in the car. It was reported they're both registered and that his brother had a concealed weapon permit, and it was reported that Jameson Williams did not, and that's the issue. And Jameson Williams was let go. And so I have not deep dived, researched the gun laws into this. I do not understand all the specifics. I am not going to comment on all that because I don't understand it to that level to give accurate information, and that's super important. What I am going to talk about is how this impacts the Detroit Lions, because that's what we're looking at here. And Coach Campbell talked about it today. He was asked about it, and he said he still believes in him. He said J-Mo needs to have some better decision-making, though, and they still need to coach him up in all areas. Now, he admitted right away, it doesn't look good, and these are Campbell's words coming out of his press conference. He said, it all came at the same time. Jameson Williams has to learn to not put himself in those situations. He needs to grow from it. They've talked about it. And Coach Campbell said he has seen a lot of growth out of this player. And I think this part in the middle of his comments is really what comes to me. He says, look, for me, I judge people over what's in their heart, and I know what's in this kid's made of, and he's worth hanging with. And so he's going to learn from this. He's going to grow, and he'll be better for all of this. And so those are some powerful words from head coach Dan Campbell about Jameson Williams. Coach, anything you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, and I think the part where he says it doesn't look good is because it was all boom, boom. When I first read it yesterday, are you kidding me? Because he's suspended, now he's out doing this stuff, let alone it was prior to the suspension. The things that he gets suspended for are mistakes of a young individual that maybe, and again, not making excuses, because as a coach, from my standpoint, is if you're going to be a distraction, then you're I don't care what your talent level is. If you're going to be a distraction, you're going to hurt the team. And Sewell, Goff, read their quotes today. Don't need to talk to them. We're going to, Sewell's big thing was we're going to help bring him along as become a man. And Sewell's a young pup too. And so, make your decisions. The key I hold up for him is if don't, I used to tell my kids, don't embarrass your parents, don't embarrass your mom, don't embarrass dad, don't embarrass your family, things like that. And, again, we're playing without him this week. We already knew it. That's something to deal with later on. Coach, I don't think these are professional athletes, so hopefully it's not a distraction part. But again, what the members of the Detroit Lions coaching and administrative positions decide with J-Mo, I back 100%, because I don't have all the ingredients. I don't have all the details. I don't have any of that stuff. I've been in these situations before where I've had parents and administrators and people coming at me, and I'm saying, you don't know what's going on, and I'm not going to tell you what's going on. So don't, whether I protected a kid until I couldn't protect him anymore or brought him along. So the Detroit Lions are going to make the decision they're going to make. Whatever happens with it, happens with it. But again, he's not playing this week. We knew that. We'll move on. We got a big game to worry about. And that's what it sounds like the Lions are geared towards. Making sure J-Mo's okay, making sure we beat the Green Bay Packers.
There you go. And, Coach Campbell ended with the fact that he has to continue to coach him up, teach him, and let him know that it's best to stay out of those situations so things like this don't come up. And I echo some of the things you said there, which is we don't have all the details. We don't know all the ingredients, as you said. And I'm trusting Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes right now because they've made so many right decisions about character and about the team, and that I'm trusting their decisions and in this one. So, okay, let's move on to Halloween costumes. There were some Halloween costumes going on this week. I guess a Twitter user named Speakeasy Sports said that offensive guard Kevin Zeitler, he thinks he looks like a pudgy Dan Campbell, is what he said. So Zeitler dressed up as Dan Campbell and his wife dressed up as him, Kevin Zeitler, for Halloween. So that's a pretty fun costume. Jared Goff was dressed up as Ricky Bobby from Talladega Nights, so that was fun. Coach, it was 2 years ago that I dressed up as Dan Campbell. So Zeitler got there. I don't look like Dan Campbell. I don't look like a pudgy Dan Campbell. I don't even look like a small Dan Campbell. Like, I do not have the physique or any of that stuff. I grew a goatee for it, though. I did do that. And I did that costume 2 years ago, and I went to the Lions game right after that. And I've shared this story a long time ago, but I want to share it again because it was a lot of fun. The Lions were 3-13-1 in his first season. They were 1-6 at that point. And I went to that game. It was like a day or two after Halloween. And Coach, you know I got that voice. You can hear me from across the field in some stadiums. And so I saw Campbell walking out, and I yelled to him. I was like, Coach Campbell, Coach Campbell. And I'm like, I yelled, for Halloween, I dressed up as you. And I'm dressed as Campbell. And I think he was there with his wife and daughter. And he looked right at me and almost laughed, but smiled and waved to me. And it was awesome. And I was like, dude, I got his attention. He took time to say hi to me. They were 1-6 at that point that season. Sheila Ford Hamp had just come out days earlier, given the validation and standing behind Dan Campbell. Well, they went 8-2 to finish that season, 12-5 last year. They're 6-1 this year. They were 4-19-1 before that costume. They're 28-9 since that costume. Now, I don't know that costume was a good luck charm. And I'm not saying it was, because I know there's lots of coincidences. But I was standing with the Lions and Dan Campbell, as were you, even when the results weren't showing up in the win column, because we saw the type of coach he was. We believed in the product he was building. And that was just a fun moment for me 2 years ago. And happy to share it again, as it is Halloween. And we're playing the Packers exactly 2 years later again. This time, it's not Aaron Rodgers coming into Ford Field where we intercept him like 3 times or something. We're going into Green Bay, and it's going to be quite the fight. Another major storyline, Coach. I mean, it seems like the trade watch day 825 in a row here. We're tired of it. Rumors have gone from left to right to middle to up to underneath. It's all over the place. I'm sticking with what I've originally said about this. I think the Lions are going to make a trade. I do. I don't think it's going to be a big name that you're thinking of, that, people have already, half of them have already been dismissed. I also said I think the Lions should go for 2 guys, because, Coach, it's not like we have like one wide receiver who got hurt and then like a defensive back that got hurt and then like a linebacker and then like a offensive lineman. It's all highly concentrated in the same area. So we just got little depth right there. And so, and the depth has all had to rise up. So as I've said it before, if you got 2 starters, one for like a 5th round pick, one for a 6th round pick, just starting caliber guys, that would take a little bit of load off of some of the guys that have had to elevate and provide more depth in case anybody else gets hurt the rest of this season. And so I know we grabbed Isaiah Thomas off of a practice squad from the Browns, but I would love to see the Lions bring in 2 guys who are currently on squads. Now, if they don't, there could be a variety of reasons why they don't, and we would probably hear that. But that's what I'm looking for, is a move, like most people are. And I'm optimistic they'll make it, but I don't know what's going on there, because, like you said, we don't have all the ingredients. What are you looking for? What are you thinking?
Well, I think, Sam, we got Broderick Martin coming back off. Muhammad had 6 pressures. See what Thomas does this week. See how our blitz packages work. And I think that'll determine on how far we have to go out on the limb to get the fruit. That's why we got it. And so those are all things that we got to think about. Kaminsky, we don't know. Maybe Kaminsky's coming back. Nobody's telling us. We don't know that. Kaminsky played for us. Somebody I read today, we're starting Pascal this week and a bunch of practice squad players. I'm like, okay, they're part of our team. And we're going to get here's the thing is, this staff will get the best out of whoever if they go out and get somebody, they will get the best out of whoever's in camp, hands down, and trust that. Yeah. Oh my God. Maybe I was thinking, I think TJ Watt, after last night's game where he had that big sack, I think he said he wants to leave Pittsburgh and come to Detroit. Yeah, who cares? You know what? We have what we have, and here's what it is. Trust the process. Trust they're doing what they're doing. A big thing is going to be how Muhammad plays this week and how Thomas plays this week. I think that's going to be a big thing. If our blitz packages get home, I think those are going to be will determine on where we're going. Are they working on things? Yes. Are they going to get somebody? Sure. Because like you said, we got depth. We got a lot of bodies we got to fill in for. So let's wait and see how this week turns out. We're not getting anybody tomorrow that's going to come in and play on Sunday. Anyways, it's over with. Let's worry about next Tuesday, and hopefully we do sign somebody.
Well, that's exactly, because there's so many variables that go into it. I want them to. I think they will. But what if nobody's willing to trade somebody at a reasonable price to us? Everybody knows the Lions want this, right? So you have to see if that works out, because you don't want to overpay. You don't want to give up too much for the future, but you also know you have a chance this year. And you're right, Coach. The Lions are going to get the most out of anybody. When Kaminsky and Bugs came here that first season, they got a ton out of both players that year, and they were both contributors. So I don't know. We might see something out of Isaiah Thomas that, other people aren't expecting. So trade watch continues. And the good news is, Coach, we only have to do one more episode before the trade deadline. So we only have to talk about the speculation one more time, and there might even be some news by then. And if not, we'll have to speculate again. Okay, the ref report. James did the research. He looked this up. That's the good news. The bad news, the Lions draw Cleet Blakeman crew. All right. Those of you are wondering, you don't know that name. 17 years as a ref, 15 as a crew chief. He played quarterback as a backup for the Cornhuskers. Wow, James did some deep diving research.
Yeah.
He did ref the NFC Championship game lost to San Francisco last year, but the game he's known for, Coach, is one that drove us crazy. That was the 2019 Lions game. I think it was on a Sunday night or Monday night game, which drew multiple late illegal hands to the face calls that ultimately cost the Lions that game. The NFL later admitted at least one of those calls was wrong. So this year, his group has called 53 penalties on home teams, 61 on the visitors. 7 games this season, they've called 20 offensive holding, 16 false start. Again, we don't want to win a game or lose a game based on what the refs do. So, but that's just a little information about the rest. I guess it's good to know who the reffing crew is and what their tendencies are, right, Coach?
Oh, for sure. You always have to look into that. You can have conversations before them. The big thing is for these guys is to be consistent. Whether we think they're good refs or we think they're bad refs, be consistent for both teams. You're going to be bad, be consistent bad. You're going to be good, be consistent good. And just don't make it one-sided and don't get makeup calls at the end of the game so that the penalties even out. Oh, I called 7 on this and I called 7 on you guys. Yeah, but the last 5 you called on them was the last 3.5 minutes of the game. So me and the referees always got along great. So they're my best friends, and Spalding and those guys, we had some great times together, and we laugh about it every time we see them. So it's what it is, and we're on the road. So not only do we have refs, we also, if it's a bad referee crew, but we got a crowd we got to go with. So I'm sure the Lions are focused on them and not anything else.
For sure. I agree with that as well. I love the insight James brings from the ref crew, just to give you an idea about that. So though, Coach, let's talk about it. What's it going to take for the Lions to win this game in your estimation?
I think be efficient, whether it's in, third down defense, whether it's in our third down offense, first downs. Don't give up any big splash, a Jalen Reed 43-yarder down the sideline so they can go down and kick a field goal to win it. That play was designed well. So those are the biggest thing. I think, play Detroit Lion football and fight over the adversity. There's going to be a ton of adversity. We all know it. Everybody on both sides is going to have adversity. And I think that's the biggest thing. I know the Lions are focused on this game and not focused on what they did last week or the week before that or week before that. They're always going 1-0, and that's what our goal is this week.
Yeah, I think the Lions schedule worked out weirdly well, which was, after the Dallas game, going on the road to the Vikings, right? And so then you couldn't have the letdown there because you had to get ready for that. You came home and, okay, well, now you got to figure out how to win this game without J-Mo. And so another way to refocus. And now after you've had that big blowout, you don't have another big underdog coming into Ford Field. You're back on the road, and you're going up against a really good team. And so I think they're going to have to stop the run. They have to continue to stop the run, because if they allow the Packers to get two-dimensional against them, I think that's going to make it that much more difficult. So I think stopping the run is going to be huge. Getting some sort of pass rush. If Jordan Love's the quarterback, you need to get a little bit more pressure. If Malik Willis is, I think you do more of that contain thing like I talked about earlier. And I think on offense, Jared Goff's been dealing, and I think he just needs to keep dealing in this game, because this Packers defense is very opportunistic. and we need to keep those opportunities limited. So let's go to prediction time. Any predictions on this game? What do you think and might happen?
I said it earlier, and I'm going to predict that Decker's going to have one of his better games, and our offensive line is going to do, and they're going to win, and we're going to win the trenches on both sides. That's my prediction, and then we'll deal with if that happens. We know what the results will be.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to just kind of take what Dan Campbell said because I agree with his prediction. He says it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think that's where it's coming down to. I mean, this is like Minnesota 2 weeks ago. And Minnesota 2 weeks ago was their toughest game of the season, in my opinion. Even though the first two games were pretty incredible, I think this is one of their toughest games. And it goes into that same category with the Vikings. And Campbell said it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. Someone's going to make a mistake. Someone's not. That could be the difference. I think it's going to be a one-score game. I know the Lions are on the road in this game, and oftentimes when there's like a one-game record differential, it's not much of a spread. But the Lions are 3.5-point favorites on ESPN on the road. It's going to be a tight game, and so fourth quarter, like Campbell said, and it's going to be the team that makes the fewest mistakes in this one because both teams are well equipped.
No, totally agree with that. And he knows. I think he knows.
That he does. Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, just looking forward to another big road game for us. And we knew this was a rough stretch, and hopefully everybody rises and those practice squad players that we're using on the defense line, I hope they all have great games.
As do I. And I'm thankful that we're playing Green Bay in early November because that weather's a little bit nicer. Not that we can't go in there in January and win a game because we've done that before too. But I'm liking this weather as well. And any Lions fans traveling to the games, I know there's a number that are planning to be there. Safe travels. Have fun. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. Tell your friends and family about the show. Like, comment on socials. Please subscribe regardless of your listening platform. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.